Hey everyone! I've had some time to test out this Terraform 8 and figure out all of its functionality as well as its limitations. So let's take a look at what this new environmental control device can do. Before we start, it's important to understand how this device works, as all of its functionality will be tied to the way this engine operates, which is powered by a heat pump. And this is sort of an advanced version of an air conditioner unit. So a traditional air conditioner has a evaporator side, which is cold, and the condenser side, which is hot. Both of these will have air passing through it, with the hot air being discarded outside and the cold air kept inside to cool down the space. The coils on the cold side also gathers a lot of water due to the way condensation works. As the temperature gets colder, the air can hold way less water, so the relative humidity around these cold coils go past 100%, hitting dew point, and water droplets start to form, similar to how condensation works on an ice-cold drink left on the countertop. The water on the coils will drip down and can be collected either right away here, or allowed to move down towards the hot coils, at which point most of it will evaporate and get carried out with the hot exhausted air. Although if it's really humid outside, then you'll need to eventually empty out the buildup of water down here if the device is collecting a lot more water than it can evaporate. So everything I just described is exactly how the cold mode works for this unit. Cold air comes out from the top, hot air gets exhausted from the back. The water that's generated can be drained out or left to evaporate with the hot air. This is also how the dehumidification mode works. But since our goal in this mode is to have the humidity in the air that condensates on the coils removed, if you want the temperature to remain about the same, you'll need to pump the hot and cold air back into the same space, either by connecting both exhausts into the tent, or more commonly, by just placing the entire unit into the tent and remove all of the ducting while letting it run. And remember how I mentioned that there's a water drain port here at the top? You'll need to collect the water from here to be drained out so that it doesn't reach the hot coils and evaporate back into the air. Now, back to what I said about this being a heat pump. What that means is that this engine also has the added ability to reverse the hot and cold side of these coils. So you can change the output of the air from cold to hot without having to adjust any of your ducting. But there's a couple of considerations you'll need to be aware of when making the switch. First, because the cold coils are now at the bottom, there's no way for the collected water to evaporate since it won't have a chance to pass through the hot side. This means that if you ever plan on using this as a heater, you'll need to drain the unit from time to time as the water tray on the bottom fills up, or set up the drain pipe so that it's continuously draining from down here. Also, because water is constantly collecting on the cold coils, if the temperature of the coils ever reach freezing point, ice will start to form around here, causing the entire engine to turn off so that it protects itself. This means that the heat mode only functions if it's pulling in air that's above 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So you won't be able to use this as a dedicated heater if your temperatures are freezing cold outside, and instead will need to use something like a Thermoforge environmental heater. But if you're using this to adjust for the large swings found in a typical night and day cycle, the heat and cold modes of this device will work just fine. Speaking of which, the auto mode is the most useful part of this device, as it can switch between the hot and cold output to maintain a set temperature or VPD target. This is achieved with the included external temperature and humidity sensor. And if you want more advanced controls, you can also plug this into any AC Infinity UIS controller to fully integrate this device with all of your other devices in your grow space. There's also a fan mode, which will only operate this top fan to act as an intake or exhaust, and all of these modes have 10 speeds of control. One last note about the heat pump. Anytime it turns off, it requires a couple of minutes for it to start back up again. which means that it takes a couple of minutes for the unit to transition from hot to cold, or if the unit is turned off, it might take a few minutes for the hot or cold air to come back again when turned on. Now for the ducting, when running this for its cold and hot modes, since there's only one exhaust output, if you duct this into your tent, it'll always create positive pressure. If you want negative pressure, you can either program your inline fan to trigger at the same time as this device, which will offset the positive pressure, or place this device inside of your grow space, ducting out the bottom port, which will create negative pressure. Just note, when placed inside of a grow tent, the exhausted air will be pulled directly from your grow space without passing through a carbon filter. So if that's going to be an issue, then you'll want to go with the inline fan method instead. As a dehumidifier, it's a little more simple, as placing both ducts into a tent will create a lot of positive pressure, and placing the unit inside of a tent without any ducting will maintain neutral pressure. The Terraform 12, coming out later this year, will have the option to add ducting to both of the intake ports for more advanced setups. But this 2-port system should be enough for most people, especially since it's strong enough to heat and cool a medium-sized room. One last thing to note is that if you're using a 4x4 tent or smaller, I would recommend using this to heat or cool the room the grow tent is in, rather than piping it directly into the tent, as I found this to be a little too strong for smaller grow spaces. But for anything 5x5 and above, this will work great when ducted in. And that's it. Hopefully this answers most of the questions regarding how this device works, and I'll be back to cover the Terraform 12 once that's released.